10 Americans have been detained by Haitian police as they tried to bus more than 30 children across the border into the Dominican Republic, allegedly without proper documents.
We had 33 children from the age of 2 months to 12 years.
I just wanted to share the truth about our situation.
The person that gave Laura our contact information told her explicitly that you cannot just take any child across the border. You have to have the correct permissions to do that from the government. And Laura wanted to make the calls anyway to see if there were ways that she could get children.
We have not in any way trafficked or kidnapped children. We came here out of love in our hearts for these children.
When a U.S. Baptist group recently tried to take 33 children out of Haiti in a do-it-yourself rescue mission, not one of the children was actually an orphan. The Associated Press has come to that conclusion after numerous interviews, and it contradicts claims by Laura Silsby, the group's leader, that the children came from orphanages or were handed over by distant relatives.
We have not in any way trafficked or kidnapped children.
On January 12, 2010, a magnitude 7.0 earthquake rocked the island nation of Haiti, the earthquake striking near Port-au-Prince, causing an estimated 220,000 casualties and destroying nearly 200,000 homes, displacing or affecting 3.5 million people. Because of the catastrophic natural disaster, 1.5 million people were living in camps. 2 months later, in March, a Haitian official commented that roughly 50,000 children that had survived the earthquake had gone missing in the ensuing chaos. On January 29, 2010, 10 American Baptist missionaries from Idaho attempted to cross the Haiti-Dominican Republic border with 33 Haitian children, with no documentation proving who the children were or where they belonged. Since the group, known as the New Life Children's Refuge, did not have proper authorization for transporting the children, they were quickly arrested on kidnapping and charges, causing somewhat of an international incident.
Obviously, this is a matter for the Haitian judicial system. We're going to continue to provide support, as we do in every instance like this, to American citizens who have been charged, and hope that this matter can be resolved in an expeditious way.
2 weeks later, 8 out of 10 of the missionaries were released after former President Bill Clinton, who was appointed by the United Nations to coordinate relief efforts by the United States, commented to the Haitian leadership saying, "What's important now is for the government of Haiti and the government of the United States to get together and work through this." He said he understood the Haitian government's efforts to try to protect its children from possible child and unlawful adoptions following the catastrophic quake. But he also said the missionaries could be telling the truth when they argued they simply wanted to help the children and did not mean to violate any laws. The judge presiding over the kidnapping case had apparently met the US halfway, but held Laura Silsby, the group's leader, and her personal assistant, Teresa Coulter, for further investigation. But on May 17, 2010, Judge Bernard St. Ville dropped the kidnapping and charges, instead charging Silsby and her assistant with irregular travel with a minor, marking their sentence as time served. And that day, the two were immediately placed on a US Air Force transport plane on a flight home. So, it must have all been a big misunderstanding, right? Well, not quite. Something seems a bit off about the whole thing. At the time, the public and media opinions on the group's actions ranged from gross negligence to an obvious attempt to trap minors. But looking back at the situation years later, it seems as though the entire story was quickly dropped from the media and faded into obscurity and out of the public eye. Upon closer inspection, almost every detail about the group's story seems to be a quickly fabricated facsimile, constructed to resemble a legitimate cover story, leading my more conspiratorial side to wonder, what were the group's, or more specifically Laura and Teresa's, actual plans for the children? To save them or to sell them? First off, let's look at the group's stated mission. The New Life Children's Refuge, or NLCR, was founded in November 2009 by Laura Silsby and Teresa Coulter, who were both members of the Central Valley Baptist Church in Meridian, Idaho. The organization described itself as a non-profit Christian ministry dedicated to rescuing, loving, and caring for orphaned, abandoned, and impoverished Haitian and Dominican children. The charity claimed to be in the process of acquiring land to build an orphanage, as well as a church and a school in Magante, on the northern coast of the Dominican Republic. The group further intended to provide adoption opportunities for American, loving Christian parents. When the earthquake struck on January 12, 2010, in Haiti, the NLCR quickly formed the Haitian Orphan Rescue Mission, a group of 10 people from the Central Valley Baptist Church and the East Side Baptist Church in Twin Falls, Idaho. The mission's plan was to go to Haiti and bring 100 orphans to Cabarete in the Dominican Republic, where the NLCR had leased a hotel to serve as a temporary orphanage. Strangely, the NLCR wasn't a well-documented, marketed, or public organization, and the only reason we have access to this mission statement is that a scanned version of the document was found to be among Hillary Clinton's infamous deleted emails then leaked by WikiLeaks. The group of 10 missionaries arrived in the Dominican Republic on January 22nd, the evening before they entered Haiti on the 25th. A journalist named Anne Christine Diadeschi met Laura Silsby, who explained that she had a letter from Dominican officials authorizing the transfer of orphans to the hotel in Cabarete. Diadeschi warned Silsby that she would also require proper paperwork from Haitian authorities, who would have a heightened awareness of human trafficking activities during this time. According to the International Organization for Migration, the increase of human trafficking in emergency contexts has repeatedly been demonstrated and detected worldwide, mainly because of a widespread lack of economic opportunities, large portions of affected populations living in emergency camps being vulnerable targets for traffickers, and due to the crime happening during an emergency context, many cases remain hidden for a long period of time, to the great detriment of the victims. On January 26th, the group gathered 40 children and set off from Haiti to the Dominican Republic. They were stopped by a policeman who explained that their actions were illegal. Undeterred, the group continued and set out to collect orphans from the devastated town of Calabas and from the slum of Le Citron in Port-au-Prince. 33 children, 20 from Calabas and 13 from Le Citron, were either put under the missionaries' care or taken by them. And as you already know, they were then caught at the border on the 29th of January and arrested with 33 children in their possession. But wait, what happened to the first 40 children? Well, I scoured every article and source I could, and could only ever find that they first gathered 40 children, were stopped by the police, let go, then that they gathered the 33 children they were caught with. Did these first 40 children ever make it to the hotel the group had leased in the Dominican Republic, or perhaps to the orphanage that was being built by the NLCR? Well, no, because as you may have already guessed, the orphanage doesn't exist. As I said, there's very little public information available about the group's venture in the Dominican Republic, nothing proving they ever broke ground or planned to break ground on the orphanage, but more on that later. One of the more disturbing details that may point to a darker criminal intent is Richard Pickett's experience with Laura Silsby, which in turn gives us more insight into Laura's dubious intentions and movements during her time in Haiti. Richard was in another area of Haiti when the earthquake struck. Due to the immense catastrophic aftermath of the situation, he was having some trouble making it back to the orphanage where several Haitian children were staying that his family was in the process of adopting legally and legitimately. The children were safe, awaiting Richard's arrival, when Laura somehow found out about the Picketts and their children in Haiti. Mrs. Pickett was disturbed after receiving 3 calls from Laura, who was a complete stranger, urging her to allow her to pick up the children and take them across the border into the DR. Laura was told, in no uncertain terms, not to attempt to take their children, informing Laura that Richard was already en route, so they didn't need any help. Trafficking was a huge concern at the time, and it's very hard to keep track of people when you cross into a different nation and they don't have identification. Laura was again told, this time by Mrs. Pickett, that the Haitian government would not allow the children to be taken across the border without paperwork due to all of those concerns. But Laura still showed up to the orphanage and tried to take the Picketts' adopted children, telling the staff that she was sent by the Picketts, which confused them as Richard had just picked them up prior to her arrival.
Do you believe that? I mean, what do you now make of this? You've had actual interaction. Your wife has had an actual interaction with them.
Yep, for my wife to have 3 different phone calls and explicitly tell her on each call to not interfere with our children, and for Laura to continue anyway to go to the orphanage to try to find them, to take them, tells me her intentions are not the best. And I guess the best, if I tried to characterize her in the best light possible, I would say her intent was to take children and use them to do fundraising and for support. Maybe it's worse than that, but I wouldn't want to speculate any further.
And it gets worse. Laura and the NLCR had hired an interpreter to go from orphanage to orphanage with her, attempting to convince the staff members to place the children in her custody, which ended with her in tears, apparently frustrated that no one would just give her the kids she was demanding. Laura then decided to go straight to the areas most affected by the disaster and take the children from the camps that were set up to triage, care for, and provide temporary shelter to direct victims of the earthquake nearby the villages of Les Citrons and Calabas.
But do you think that's really maybe what was at the heart of this, that she, for whatever reason, wanted to use these kids or show that she was doing stuff for fundraising?
Yes, because as David may tell you if you switch back to him, she then hired David when he wouldn't give her any children and my children were not there, they were with me. She hired David to go from orphanage to orphanage and be her translator and guide, and no one would turn children over to her, and in the end she was frustrated and crying that none of the responsible adults would give her any children.
Yeah, David suddenly has become sort of reticent to talk to us, so I think I'm just going to stick with you. He has previously said that he was hired as an interpreter by her and told us and told our producers that she would cry. What do you make of that, Richard?
Again, it just shows that her intent really cannot be the best. If the responsible adults are there taking care of the children and providing for them, why would she cry and become frustrated when they don't give them up? I would think she'd be happy to find that there were responsible caregivers that were taking care of the children. But since she wasn't, obviously her intentions couldn't have been the best.
Interestingly, a Dominican man named Jorge Puello worked as a lawyer for Laura and Teresa during their confinement in Haiti. It was later exposed that Jorge was wanted in 4 countries, including a warrant in Vermont, and was being hunted by Interpol for his role in a trafficking ring, a role that had him bringing women and girls from Central America and the Caribbean into El Salvador and luring them into prostitution through offers of modeling and office jobs. The case against Mr. Puello broke open when 3 underage Nicaraguan girls escaped from a house where they said they had been held captive for up to 10 days by Mr. Puello's wife, Ana, and another man, according to Jorge Callejas, head of the Salvadoran Border Police. When the police raided the house, they found 2 other girls from the Dominican Republic. The police arrested the Nicaraguan man and Mr. Puello's wife, who is believed to have managed logistics and fed the girls. Mr. Puello, who was tied to the scene by documents at the house, escaped. There were suggestions that the ring may have had the protection of government officials. A car parked out front at the time of the raid was registered to Pablo Nasser, who was Deputy Director of Immigration at the time. So, a Dominican man who had warrants in 4 countries and was wanted by Interpol for charges was working as a lawyer with the ringleader of the NLCR. Could they have been planning on dropping the children off with Puello before they were caught, as we don't know what happened to the first 40 children and have no proof that the group had ever broken ground on their orphanage, school, or church in Magante? It's a tempting conclusion to jump to. Speaking of the orphanage in Magante, I traced the claim that they were building this orphanage down to a singular person and one document produced by Silsby and Coulter. The person, Mel Coulter, Teresa Coulter's father. Laura and Teresa had traveled together to the Dominican Republic and Haiti in July of 2009. When Mr. Coulter inquired as to what they were doing, Teresa told him they were laying the groundwork then for opening an orphanage and coordinating with people there who were running interference for them. And the document? Well, the same singular mission statement document that was leaked by WikiLeaks. Another very important question: who was bankrolling this organization? As far as I can tell, Laura Silsby and Teresa Coulter made at least 2 trips to the Dominican Republic and Haiti prior to their arrest. 1 trip in July of 2009 and 1 trip later that year. They were apparently building not only an orphanage, but a school and church, as well as paying for the actual land in Magante. Supporting just 1 or 2 orphans abroad isn't isn't something someone with an average income can do easily, and as far as we know, Laura was greatly struggling financially at the time. In 2009, the Idaho Statesman reported that she had been pursued legally by a number of creditors for repeatedly not paying bills, including wages to employees of her online personal shopping business, and the Idaho court records show several judgments against Ms. Silsby, all in 2009. Silsby had a history of failing to pay debts, failing to pay her employees, and failing to follow Idaho laws. Silsby had been the subject of 8 civil lawsuits and 14 unpaid wage claims. The $358,000 Meridian, Idaho house at which she founded her nonprofit was foreclosed upon in December of 2009, just weeks before she left for Haiti. The church she belonged to did approve certain worldwide missions, but was not directly involved in the funding of the NLCR. I only looked into the funding so thoroughly because if there isn't any funding, then there was never going to be an orphanage, which would have to mean that the kids were being taken from Haiti for other reasons. Did the group have a silent benefactor funding the excursion? But if so, why stay silent? And if they were truly developing this land in the Dominican Republic, what happened? Where's the orphanage? Although it does seem like the NLCR's intentions may have been darker than they let on, the story does get more complex, as at least 6 of the children found in the bus with the group of missionaries were given up by either one or both parents, hoping to give their children a better life in the wake of catastrophe. Though the parents' permission doesn't necessarily change the possible outcome, it does at least offer an explanation for why those 6 children were on the bus. And what would be the motive? Well, pushing aside your regular run-of-the-mill child enterprise. At the time in 2010, hopeful parents looking to adopt would pay up to $30,000 per child. Silsby, who seemed to be in massive debt, likely knew she could make a massive profit from literally selling the children. I find it interesting that even her own lawyer, not Jorge Puello, but Edwin Koch, pretty much outright accused her at the time when he said, quote, "Miss Silsby knew many of the so-called orphans still had living parents or other close relatives, but tried to move them over the border anyway. Miss Silsby companions are well-meaning people caught up in a scheme they did not understand. They were naive. They had no idea what was going on, and they did not know that they needed official papers to cross the border, but Silsby did." So, what happened to Laura Silsby after she was freed? What did she have to say about her time in Haiti? Did she go on talk shows and talk about being falsely accused and wrongly imprisoned? Did she do an episode of Locked Up Abroad? Did she complete the orphanage in the Dominican Republic? No. Laura Silsby never gave a singular formal interview about what happened, nor did any of the other 9 missionaries that were arrested. Laura changed her name, now going by Laura Silsby Gaylor. She continued to face her legal issues at home in Idaho, and ended up as the VP of marketing at a company that provides the technology used to issue Amber Alerts, an emergency broadcast response system used when a child is abducted. When put simply, Laura Silsby and a group of her followers made their way to Haiti in the midst of a catastrophic disaster, attempted to take hundreds of kids, lied, tried to kidnap children whose parents she knew and had talked to, who insisted she stay away, was told time and time again that she was not following the legal process and was breaking the law, lied about missing only 1 document when the group in fact had no documentation, was associated with and represented by a wanted alleged human trafficker who was from the place she was trying to take the children. She was then swiftly freed and taken home via a U.S. Air Force plane, then never giving any interviews, standing up for herself, or attempting to explain any of it, and finally being hired into a cushy position working for a company that supposedly protects children.
Monsters do have their place, in the zoo, in your nightmares, in the deep, in your favorite horror movies. But not in your living room. Living room.